Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most. Tucker is going to right some wrongs in this episode. And then we're going to talk about VHS organization, and I'm going to talk about being triggered by Pamela Anderson. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
JJ, you and I have known each other for a real long time. We're real good friends. And sometimes friends, especially really good friends, will fight.
Are
right?
we getting a divorce?
No.
Okay.
No. We'll fight. We may argue or debate or have come to loggerheads over something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's big. Sometimes it's small.
Sometimes it's what's better, mayonnaise or Miracle Whip.
Yeah, right. Things like that, right?
Yeah, that'd be an example of a big one.
If you can think back through the various times you and I have come to,
Had a spat,
a dispute of some kind, a tiff, a dust up. Which one of us do you think has a higher win percentage?
How do we define the win?
I mean, it's really your own subjective version of a win, meaning like who's correct, who came out like
who got more their way than the other one.
Who seems to, in some.
I would say I think you end up getting your way, and here's why. I've never directed you in anything.
Okay.
But you've directed me in stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Even though I completely took Santaland Diaries hostage.
Well, I gave you permission.
I remember after that last show, because you came and saw the first show and you saw the last one, you're just like, well, that is a lot different than it was when we first put it out, and be like, it sure is. That little work I did with the sandwich, working it up to my mouth.
Yeah. Well, I think there's another. I actually was assuming that you.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons, if I do have a higher percentage, I guess the fight
because you end every argument with like, but you like Captain Ron.
No, it's. I think what it is that the fights that stick out of my mind are the ones that you won, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't think about the ones that I won.
Okay.
But if I do have a higher percentage, if I do have that, I have to assume it's because I do follow up. I don't let it.
You find proof.
I don't let it rest until I can go, hey, listen, Your Honor, Exhibit A, right? So I've curated today a section from an old episode 256.
Oh, okay.
This conversation took place throughout the course of the episode, so I've gone through and removed the sections that weren't this conversation, right? So it comes down to about a 5-minute clip from an old episode of JJ Meets World. I think we must have been in the mid-pandemic or something. Okay. Because this is one of those Zencaster episodes where we're both not in the room at the same time.
And you've prepared audio for this.
Yeah. And so if you just want to download the link that I emailed you,
I'm ready to play it.
And we'll play it, and then you and I can talk after it's played.
Okay. So we're going to be silent until this thing is done.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I had this really bitchin' Dick Tracy wallet that I loved a lot. And I forgot it somewhere. Like I just left it somewhere. Now, luckily I was a kid, so I had no money. I just was carrying this wallet around in the hopes that one day I'd have $1 to put in it. But it was awesome. It had the Dick Tracy logo on it, and it was yellow.
Also, after a brief Googling, I can't find that wallet that you had. I wonder if you're maybe remembering it incorrectly, because I can find a lot of Dick Tracy wallets that are like red or black, but none that are yellow.
This was back when I would have been if not the single digits, then I was maybe 10 or 11.
Okay.
So this, I'm going to Google this now too and see if I can find anything. But right now,
I found a lunchbox. Did you accidentally call your lunchbox your wallet?
I am positive this was a wallet, and it had Velcro. It would Velcro shut.
See, a lot of these look like they are Velcro based, but none of them really seem to show. So
I got to tell you, I'm getting really upset with this whole Dick Tracy wallet thing right now. It's actually making me feel bad because I know I had a yellow one. I know I did. And there's no reason they wouldn't make a yellow one. No reason at all. But so far, yeah, I'm just seeing red and blue. It's that same make and model, but I had it in yellow. I swear to Christ.
Even if
And
you
yeah,
go back in time, Tucker, to like the Dick Tracy fan club from the 50s, they didn't have a yellow wallet.
I had a yellow Dick Tracy wallet. I swear to God.
Okay.
It exists.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll have to look. Here's one in bright red, but I don't see any in yellow. And it would.
What sense does it make to not make one that's yellow, JJ? That's the Dick Tracy color.
I'll tell you why. Because so much of his iconic look in the hat and the trench coat is yellow that it would be yellow on top of yellow.
No,
like
there's
the
still
black
a
makes it
crisp enough
pop.
outline. There's still a crisp enough outline. They made fanny packs in yellow. I just found a fanny pack in yellow. You tell me they're not going to make it's the same
They're not going to make a
material.
wallet. They're not going to make a wallet that goes along with that. Maybe you had the Madonna one. Maybe you had the Breathless Malone. And you don't
because
remember,
you're
and
not
you're like,
seeing
"Oh,
it
it's
in
Dick.
your
Yeah,
Google
look, this is
search.
Dick Tracy." And he's like, "No, that's Madonna." And you're like, "No, this is Dick Tracy."
I cannot even imagine what that conversation at the marketing firm was like. Well, Dick Tracy's really known for his yellow, and we're making everything else yellow. Let's make sure to make these wallets yellow. And like, no, hold back on that. Just blue, black, and red for the Dick Tracy wallets. No yellow. That makes zero sense.
You know that movie became like a huge flop, right?
Right, but they were making the wallets before they knew the movie was going
but they clearly, like, even during the making of the movie, when they were talking about merchandise, they're like, "We'll do this and we'll do this, and people will love this and we'll do this." Everything with that movie was a misstep.
You know what I think with the wallet situation is I think people love their yellow Dick Tracy wallets so much that they're not listing them for sale
Then
on
why
eBay.
am I not finding fan sites devoted to the yellow wallet? I love where you're going with your attitude, but if people love them so much, there would at least be a fan site for it.
Well, but wouldn't there be just a fan site for Dick Tracy wallets in general?
No, because clearly there are people who want to sell their other Dick Tracy memorabilia all over the place. But this elusive yellow Dick Tracy wallet.
Elusive because you can't find one.
That is literally
Google
the
search.
definition of elusive.
Because you can't find it in
Because
the
I
Google
cannot
search.
find it anywhere. That is the definition.
There's got to be because it was a Walt Disney film, so it's got to be like
Technically,
a
it's
Walt Disney
Touchstone.
collect- Well, according to Mary 5145's posting for her red wallet, the Dick Tracy wallet, the movie from 1990s Walt Disney Company Dick Tracy movie character wallet, that's what this says, and it's got fold over Velcro closed. So this is the same wallet, but I had it in yellow.
And you're positive it was yellow.
JJ, if they made a fucking green, like a Hulk wallet, do you think it wouldn't be green?
It could be red. There's the Red Hulk.
I'm not saying it wouldn't make a red one. Do you think they would not make a green one?
I'm saying that if we're talking about 1990 Disney properties with Jeffrey Katzenberg there definitely is not a green Hulk wallet.
You think I'm making something up that was a really important part of my childhood?
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe you're misremembering it.
I'm not misremembering it. I had a yellow Dick Tracy wallet. It was bitchin'. I loved it so much. I miss it. And it existed, and it exists now.
You know what's funny about Dick Tracy is it literally foretold the Apple Watch. Okay.
So that was the conversation
That was the conversation that we had.
that we had.
All I see is
Don't even start. Don't you even fucking start with me.
So where did you find this proof?
This was someone was selling one on Etsy.
On Etsy?
Yeah, which is where a lot of them were showing up. And then I found some more on eBay. So they've actually started showing up. That day, we literally just weren't finding them on the Google search. But it does literally exist now. And
It is pretty elusive, though.
But I have proven to you that I was not misremembering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't that an amazing wallet?
I mean, an argument could be made.
Oh,
that
my God.
The point of Etsy is those are people making things. It's
or-
not eBay where they're selling.
No.
No.
You can. There is a very active VHS
on Etsy.
on Etsy. There's a very, very active vintage items on Etsy. So no, Etsy is now just
It's eBay.
it's just
just
it's
spelled
just
eBay
another market shop, basically. Yep. So do you want your market on? Do you want your
so
online?
how much is
store?
that going for?
I didn't save the price, so I don't know.
It's kind of interesting. You didn't show me a website. You just showed me a JPEG.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one, and it's such a good one.
Do you have Photoshop
It
saved
is
on your computer?
Do I have Photoshop saved on my computer?
Like, is that something you utilize on your computer?
It is something I utilize on my computer. But here's what I'm going to do, JJ.
Photoshop can't make a website.
But here's what we're going to do, JJ, because I just know that your obstinance will not be overcome. I'm not
It's
here.
true.
I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm here. This is a warning shot. Is what this is. Because this image that I have saved here will be the thumbnail for this episode.
Oh, okay.
And so, listeners, you go look and you tell me, did I make that up or is that a real thing? And we'll let them decide.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can put that out into the world.
Yeah.
You're gonna let people who can just decide, you know what, I never saw that, so it didn't exist. Because I would say that is a real rule of thumb that the internet is
That's one you clearly follow.
dealing with. Well, I told you I saw a red one. Seeing is believing. I saw a red one. I saw a black one.
Yeah, but
now I've seen a yellow one, so now I can say that it exists.
You never came up with a solid answer for my point about why
okay.
would they not have a yellow one? That would be such a weird choice to make.
Yeah, but,
That'd be like making a Batman wallet, not a black
but
one.
why? Okay, let me add a question to the question. Why would they put lead paint on the side of collectible glasses?
The fuck?
Like merchandisers just make weird choices.
That is a non sequitur.
Sure is.
That's
It sure is.
That's what my parents fucking do.
Non sequiturs.
I
like
was
that?
thinking about this today of how both of my parents routinely do non sequiturs in conversation, but their styles are very, very different.
Sure.
For my mom, she's gonna jump into just the most depressing, sudden, like out of nowhere. You know, you're a group of people having coffee, and then suddenly, like, can you believe? And then XYZ horrible thing that just happened like a week ago, and it comes from nowhere. With my dad, it's just stuff that's highly inappropriate that you just shouldn't say. Like, you didn't
Out
read,
of nowhere.
You didn't read the room, and that has no connection to what we're doing right now.
So, okay. Vintage pack of Dick Tracy party supplies. There is a fanny pack, in fact. There's a join the gang. Those must be invites. And you know what? You see an awful lot of yellow in with that, right? But then when I just searched Dick Tracy movie merchandise, there's a vintage AMC Dick Tracy movie premiere. I was there.
Here's a screenshot of the search that I did.
You know, looking at vintage 1990s Walt Disney Dick Tracy Velcro wallet with keychain and original tag.
Yep. Original tag.
So I'm just saying that, like, there are a lot of Dick Tracy products that are not yellow, and I agree wholeheartedly that Dick Tracy's whole look. Let's take a step back, because I actually, after we had that conversation, it made me itch to watch the Dick Tracy movie. Right? Warren Beatty put everything he had into the movie Dick Tracy. Everything. And in fact, one could say it's actually what kind of shot his career down after that, because he wanted to direct it. He wanted to star in it. Dick Tracy would be a horrible real-life detective because he wears that giant yellow trench coat and giant yellow hat all the time. You'd be able to spot him anywhere.
He wouldn't be, slinking around trying to,
He can't hide in the shadows.
No.
I mean, any piece of light would bounce off of him so quickly and easily. Also, I love the fact that the villains in Dick Tracy are somebody who just looks at something and he's like, well, we'll make his head look like that. Right? So they're like, this guy's name is Babyface. It's literally a giant head with a baby face.
Yeah, this is desk head or something.
Right.
You know, just
Right, exactly. This is microphone nose. He's running the numbers. Also, here's an interesting fact about the Dick Tracy movie when I watched it. First of all, the music doesn't get enough acclaim in that. The kind of like womp 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 is the music is really great. But have you noticed in the montage where I believe the song is Back in Business, where Al Pacino's able as what's his face? What's his name?
I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
He's Big Boy. Big Boy. That's the name of his character. Big
He's
Boy.
amazing.
He is
in
amazing.
Dick Tracy. He's hilarious.
So Big Boy's like back in business because they've framed Dick Tracy and he's in prison. And they're only robbing old people. Like they rob like a vegetable cart and it's an old guy, and then they rob an old lady. They're only robbing old people in the montage. And I was like, what a weird choice to make for you guys in that. Also,
The vulnerable.
you would think that we would have more opportunity to get Charlie Korsmo, who played the kid.
Which you brought up in that episode,
Yeah.
but I cut that because that clip was already too long.
It didn't have anything to do with the wallet.
That was your solution at one point, was to go, hey, let's ask him and see if he can remember.
I think that I'm good for you. You were absolutely right. You good for you. You found the proof and everything on the
followed
little
up.
yellow wallet.
I remember one day going, oh, that's right. Oh, that pissed me off. So I doubled down and just started searching.
What do you think it is about your personality where you hold on to something so trivial?
I'm an asshole.
Is that what it is?
Probably.
I don't think so.
Oh, I thank you.
I think that something triggered you, and I'm sorry that you had so much trauma.
Well, no, I think really what it was is that
you want that wallet so bad.
the dear memory of it, right? Like it was frustrating me. I think the real frustration, I knew what you were doing. I understood the bit. I love the bit. What was really frustrating was the Google searching. Was like, how the fuck is this not showing up anywhere?
Wouldn't it have been great if at the end of that whole thing you found it and just could send the link and you'd feel justified, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And so you have to end at, I mean, in all honesty, you were impotent by the end of this.
I'll have to look at I can't remember what date we released it, but that was episode 256. So whatever date. So since that day, I have been in suffering until about a month or two ago when I found this.
Wow. And you've been holding on to that for a month?
I've been holding on to it for a bit. I knew I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know.
Do you remember what the price was on it?
No, I don't. But you know,
Because your birthday's right around the corner. So are the holidays.
I'll just actually try to do another search right now.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And just see, because it's been a while since I've done one now. But I will, the Dick Tracy, my affection for the movie really comes down to the marketing for the movie. Because I have a memory as a kid going to some like dime store video rental in one of the tiny towns that's on the outskirts of Fargo and seeing a Nintendo game, the Dick Tracy Nintendo game, and seeing the label and being like, that's cool. That looks awesome, right? It looks fantastic. It looks like a superhero. And then the VHS tape of Dick Tracy is one of the tapes that I collect multiple copies of. So whenever I find it, I grab it. I love the package design. I just love the whole look of it. It sparks joy for me. And, Dick Tracy was really part of that first the early 90s superheroes wave was really when Dick Tracy came out. Because you had Batman, you had The Shadow, you had The Rocketeer, these sort of characters that were not really that mainstream with the exception of Batman, but were all from the pulp in the pulps in some way.
I loved The Rocketeer. It's a good World War II movie, good versus evil.
Mm-hmm. Oh, The Phantom would have been probably the very end of all of those, but with Billy Zane. I remember loving The Phantom. Now, I mean, Meteor Man came out in 91?
Yeah, poor Meteor Man's getting rolled into this.
Well, I was obsessed with Meteor Man for a period of time. I wanted to be Meteor Man. And in fact, I ripped off his origin story for how he got his powers when I tried to make my own comic book superhero team called the Blasters. And it was just a bunch of people who all got hit by meteors and then absorbed it and generated a power of
different
something.
meteors?
Yeah, each of them got hit by their own meteor, basically. And then there was a bad guy named Mourner who also got hit by a meteor. And he was a bad guy, though. He wanted to hurt people. And his power that he got was that he could enlarge any part of his body to any size he wanted. And so what he would do is he'd make giant fists and he'd punch people with giant fists or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was awful. But I was obsessed with Meteor Man. And for when that movie came out, I saw it a couple of times. And I remember thinking, this is awesome. It's funny. It's got great action to it. Like Meteor Man, the character's really cool, and he solves like gang violence and all this other stuff. And so I have a copy of Meteor Man on VHS, but I had to go to eBay for that one because that's one that you just don't find in the wild at all.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I want to own up on something since we're shitting on me for the majority of this podcast.
We don't need to shit on you.
Oh, we've already begun
setting the record straight.
Okay, so let's set the record straight about this too. I mentioned this in the last episode, which we recorded in different parts of the country.
Oh, when you were on the honor flight. On the honor flight.
I deleted by accident, and not really deleted, but like it's somewhere in the server of our building, like somewhere deep. I accidentally essentially erased a full hour of work that we did.
That's okay.
And
it's an accident. It happens.
I felt bad about it.
Aw.
And so what I'd like to do to make amends about it is I'd like to try and recreate the opening of that episode as you.
Oh.
Okay. So
Okay.
It goes like this. Tucker, do you have a favorite mug? I sure do. You know what my favorite mug is? My favorite mug is the one that I put my coffee in and I drink it. And you know what else I like to do? I like to go back over a year ago and listen to old episodes and hopefully bring up the wallet from Dick Tracy. Wow, that's a very specific thing to say about your favorite mug. You know what my favorite mug is? Tucker is my best friend. Smash!
That was exactly word for word.
It was,
almost.
wasn't it?
You have a memory like a steel trap.
It's uncanny, is what it would be.
I'm looking at Etsy. So I've done the thing already where you go to look for one thing, and now I'm already looking at other shit and getting excited about it. What's DKK? Like it's showing me a price in DKK.
Is that like a Danish crown?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell. I just Googled, Dick Tracy wallet. And yep, Etsy Denmark. Okay. That's what it is. Because I was going to say, here's what I want for my birthday would be one of these.
Oh, one of the Dick Tracy mugs.
Yeah, it would be a Dick Tracy mug.
Let me put it this way. You could make that mug yourself, on Vistaprint pretty easily. And I know that you're like, oh, but I'd like the one that came out with the movie and everything like that. But again, lead paint.
Yep. Maybe. Does it have lead paint in it?
Yeah. And so previous guest Phil Goodell has a whole collection of Garfield glasses, and he's single. I don't know if those things have to do with each other, but they might be. And they are lead paint. It's lead paint on the outside of the glass. So he's been careful not to ever put them through the dishwasher. So they're in pristine collection. But I'm like, do not drink milk out of those. You'll end up poisoning yourself.
Well, I would want to actually confirm if this does have lead paint in it or not. But I think what I would do as a collector would be I try to find myself one at a good price that is just this sits on a shelf and I love the look of it and it's a vintage or whatever.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'd make one. Yeah, just make my own, but then new materials, brand new, and I could maybe get a specific size or something. The thing is, it's crazy. Is yellow is like not my color, right? That's not a color that I wear.
It's like a Big Bird yellow too.
It is, but for some reason there's something about how Dick Tracy uses it in the logo and just the whole design of it.
Well, I believe for a fact it's the only yellow you ever see on screen or on the comics. And that's one of the things that sets him aside because there's nothing. You'd never see him eating a banana.
Yeah. And did you know that like in the later Dick Tracy stories, it becomes super like sci-fi? Like he deals with like these moon people called the Lunarians. Dick Tracy eventually becomes more like a spaceship type show.
Really?
Or a story after a number of years. So there's a lot to Dick Tracy that I'd love to dive into. Dick Tracy is one of those things for my my VHS wall where I keep my Dick Tracy tapes in the superhero section, in the section of heroes that are not Marvel or DC. Mm-hmm. So there's some connection to the comics, plus I would consider them a superhero, even though Dick Tracy, you could just say he's a detective, right? I mean, he doesn't seem to have superpowers, but I think he just fits. The connections are all there. But sometimes I have to ask myself, does this tape belong here or not? So Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson, that's based off of a comic book. And so that character, Barbed Wire, is considered technically kind of a comic book superhero, but really she's just sort of like a lady with guns, and she was made into one movie. And so I have it there, but I kind of go, I don't know if this fits or not. Another one would be Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian is not necessarily a superhero, but he exists in the Marvel universe. Marvel was making comics of him in the 70s before they made the movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he is currently he exists with the X-Men and the Avengers and everything. So I go, well, this character started as a character in a book as the descendant of Kull the Conqueror, and it wasn't until like the 60s and 70s when he got licensed to be in comic books and then got licensed to be in movies. So he's not a superhero. He didn't start as a comic book character. However, he's so deeply entrenched in the Marvel universe now that it's like, I feels like he should belong in the Marvel section.
Sure.
JJ, these are the questions that I struggle with. I stand in my living room and I look and I go, am I doing this right or not?
Like, oh God, this is the worst.
I have my Power Rangers tapes in with like the Godzilla kaiju stuff because I feel like it feels more like it belongs there because they made those episodes with the Japanese footage where the giant robots are fighting giant monsters. And even though they are superheroes, they didn't start in the comic books. They started somewhere else. So I kind of keep them separate. But I don't know, man. Like, would you consider the characters in Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat superheroes?
No.
What about RoboCop?
Yes.
RoboCop's a superhero.
Yeah.
Okay. What and why would you say he's a superhero?
I think that he's a superhero because he has taken on robots. And that feels very superhero.
Because he's
thingy.
fought robots?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fact that he has an origin story, that's the thing that you miss out in like the Street Fighter and the Mortal Kombat movies, is there's really no origin story for all of these people. They're just kind of set together.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, they have heightened abilities.
Yeah.
They have like a look that they go for.
Like Raiden can get the power of lightning, right? And
Sub-Zero can shoot ice out of his hands.
Yep.
And so they're powered characters.
Okay, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it always bothered me that there was not a balance to Sub-Zero. Like, if you're going to make two characters who are exactly the same in costume, why is one Scorpion and not like, Volcano or something like that? Like shouldn't it be Sub-Zero and like Fahrenheit or something like that? And so he can instead of shooting you with a bolt of like an icicle bolt, he shoots you with flame or something like that.
Oh shoot, that one that I had found is sold. How much did it sell for?
In Danish crowns, please.
Yeah. 137.97 Danish crowns. So I don't know what how that transfers to United States dollars.
That's almost 100 Stroop waffles.
I forgot what I was saying now. I got so distracted.
You were trying to ask me why I think RoboCop would be a superhero. But yet those characters would not be.
Well, so I was talking about the difficulty of curating that section because so many things could fit there. And so you got to go Popeye. Popeye, who I've got a great VHS. I love that movie. I love the look of that. Started as a comic strip character.
Yep.
Right. So it has a comic origin, which I think is strong. He has basically a power-up move where he ingests spinach and then it gives him seemingly superhuman abilities. He has a nemesis. And he is righting wrongs, right? He has a moral compass. He's protecting the weak, but he's not adopting a pseudonym. He is who he is. I am who I am, and that's all that I am. He is just Popeye. So he doesn't adopt like a pseudonym or anything like that, but he has these other pieces that make you go, gosh, I mean, he's maybe not a superhero, but it almost feels like the comic book origins piece of it is really the main driver. And then if a character is close enough to a superhero, they could live in that world. But I don't know. Popeye feels like something different.
Right. I agree. I think that if you just put this on paper and you put like Popeye right next to, let's say, Green Lantern, you might be like, wow, both were in selective service. Both,
Yeah.
both utilize a green substance to help give them like some kind of superhuman power.
Right. Like,
And so I totally understand where you're coming from. That being said, Popeye, if you were to list the genres that Popeye belongs in, first and foremost, it's musical.
the movie?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Right. And so, interesting fact about the musical, John Landis, who directed Blues Brothers, is really mad when people say that it's a comedy. And he goes, it is a musical. It was directed as a musical. It's supposed to be, music influences everything. It is, in fact, a musical in itself. So I think like it depends on how many it takes to get into the subgenre for you.
So, okay, let me read off to you the characters that are currently the tapes that are currently. It's one tiny shelf. It's not a huge list, but I've got. First, I actually have the Ninja Turtles because they were my first superheroes. They were my first obsession. Right. Then it's Marvel. Then it's DC. And then there's a section of non-Marvel, DC, or Ninja Turtle superheroes, right? So superheroes that don't fall into those characteristics.
Meteor Man.
And so I've got the Phantom at as the first one in the list because I've got a clamshell of it. So I always do order of the format, like case that it's in, and then alphabetical order by character, usually.
Okay.
It's usually what I do. But I've got that. Then I've got Barbed Wire, right? I've got one that I'm thinking about taking out, which is the Black Mask, which is Jet Li. And the filmmakers refer to him as a superhero.
Okay.
Like, they talk about him being a superhero. The intention behind him is superhero. But I don't know. Like he wears a Kato mask. He's basically a variation of Kato. So they're leaning into that, which kind of makes him fit. After that, I've got Condor Man, which was a Walt Disney movie with, is it Dudley Moore? No, it's I forget the actor who plays Condor. It's a comedy, and it's a superhero spoof, basically.
Okay.
But he's a superhero. Interestingly enough, I used to have Mystery Men in here, and I don't anymore. I pulled that one time, but that because Condor Man's in there, I think Mystery Men might need to make a return. Then I've got the
Mystery Men has some of the best villains of a movie. For example, there's Tony P and Tony C, the Disco Brothers. There's fraternity guys. I mean, like the villains in that are just out of this world.
And but I think you would maybe its genre is parody, really, right? Would you say,
Yes.
or superhero parody, innocent? So
when I met Dane Cook, we talked about his brief role in that as the Waffler.
So I've got The Crow, starring Brandon Lee, and the sequel, City of Angels. So I've got to get Salvation, and then there was like a Canadian series.
Wait a minute, City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan?
No, The Crow, City of Angels.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah,
thank God. 'Cause I was like, that took a drastic turn.
No. Captain Midnight, which was a character that actually previous podcast guest, may he rest in peace, Doug Hamilton, played on the radio for a period of time in college, but he was a radio serial superhero that then became a comic book character and became a TV character. And I found like a double feature of him at one point. So he's in here. Here's the next one. It's 3 episodes. There's 3 tapes, 3 separate episodes of Darkwing Duck. Okay. So again, we're talking superhero.
Yeah.
Right? Like for sure. But also, I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it parody or not, because there's definitely Batman parodying going on in it. And Darkwing Duck himself is a humorous character who takes himself far more seriously than everyone else does.
But he fights some pretty intense battles.
He fights intense battles.
And his main nemesis is Negaduck, which is the exact same version of him, but in a negative connotation.
Yeah, I mean, he if you were to ask him, are you a superhero? He'd say, absolutely, I'm a superhero, right? He might say I'm a vigilante or something, but he would also be like, no, I'm a superhero for sure. Then I've got Dick Tracy. I've got an episode, an old episode of one of the serials, and then I've got 4 copies of the Warren Beatty film, run right after the other. Right after that, I've got what's his first name? It's the movie is called G-Men from Hell.
Ooh.
and it's I forget who's in it, but it's based off of I think like a mini graphic novel series that,
G-Men from Hell.
that no one ever heard about, and so it's like kind of a campy B movie. Then I've got the Green Hornet, which absolutely belongs here. The Green Hornet for sure is a superhero, even though he has no superpowers. And so the Green Hornet and Kato, of course, have actually met Batman and Robin in the old TV show, fought them for a period of time. Here's the surprise one for a lot of people: The Mask, starring Jim Carrey.
Oh, that fits.
That is a superhero movie. It's based off of the Dark Horse comic book character, The Mask, who is then it's supposed to be kind of a parody of superheroes as well.
Smoking.
But it's based off of a Dark Horse comic, the publisher Dark Horse. So, I mean, it fits. You know, he has an origin story, an assumed identity, superpowers when he does that thing, fights crime in his own way.
Can you tell me what his character name is when he's not the Mask?
Stanley Ipkiss.
Nice.
Yep.
That was one of my favorite character names.
I fucking loved The Mask growing up. I still remember the line, "Your brake derms are shot and you need new transmission," when the guys are fucking him over at the car shop.
Now, is it in 1994 is the year that Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all come out? Like Jim Carrey, it was Jim Carrey's year.
It was basically one of the biggest like meteor impacts of. Speaking of which, next we have Meteor Man.
Oh, nice.
And this is one I had to go to eBay to get a copy of. I just couldn't find it. After that, again, this is one that's like it makes sense why it's here, but it could leave. Orgasmo.
Yeah. Oh, it 100% belongs there.
I mean, he does become a superhero. It is a superhero parody.
My favorite throwaway joke that I think I've ever seen in a movie ever is in the movie Orgasmo, which, by the way, if you're listening to this, it is about a Mormon missionary who, to make money, he joins the world of adult programming, and he plays a character. They're like, "You're a really good actor." And so the idea is that he doesn't actually have to engage in sex, but he's the actor for it.
Stunt cock.
And he has like they come up with this fake superhero duo, and one of the funniest things is it's an establishing shot of a car pulling into a driveway, and you hear the voiceover, "I'm sure glad you came over, Joe. I've been wanting to show you my laboratory for a long time." Then it cuts to inside the car, and the character who you think is saying this out loud, the opposite goes, "Did you say something?" "Oh, no, I was just thinking." And it is a perfect joke. Those guys, they're so smart.
Yeah. So Orgasmo is here.
That belongs there.
Then we've got The Shadow, starring Alec Baldwin, which definitely, he's
Who knows? The Shadow knows.
He's a Pulp Fiction superhero, kind of around the same time as Green Hornet and all these other characters. Sin City, which is not superhero, but it is 100% from the comic books. It's literally frame for frame, almost a recreation of the comics. Frank Miller, who made it, of course, made The Dark Knight Returns and a bunch of other things, and it belongs in that comic book world of crazy characters doing stuff, but they're not superheroes, right? So there's just really the comic book connection. Then I've got a number of things for Spawn, Spawn is the most popular superhero who is not Ninja Turtles or Marvel and DC. He is. In the comic book world, he's the guy. He's from Image comic books.
McFarlane
Todd
Toys
McFarlane.
made so much money.
Yep. He is a combination of Batman, Spider-Man, Punisher, Venom, and all these other titles that McFarlane worked on in the early 90s.
A lot of biblical references, too, since he's a demon.
Heaven versus Hell, and that's where they could really lean into like the guts and gore and sexuality and stuff in the 90s. So for those of us kids who were into it, it was awesome. It was a great time. And I've got a bunch of things of like the HBO show and then the movie. And then last but not least, I have The Mask of Zorro. And Zorro is very much a vigilante superhero in the sense of Batman in a lot of ways, and that he is by day he's sort of a foppish, dandy, wealthy nincompoop to disguise the fact that at night he is a masked vigilante.
Okay, Tucker, the only thing I would disagree with wholeheartedly on your list would be I don't think Sin City belongs in that mix. But I don't feel deeply enough about it to really like dig into it.
Right.
But I think you got a good collection there of things that are superhero adjacent. You know, if this is a Venn diagram, there certainly is enough like bleeding over that it would make sense that all of those things would be together.
Right. Like, you know, if I'm putting Sin City on the shelf, you can certainly make an argument to put Garfield on the shelf, right? Because it began as a comic strip.
Yep.
And that's really with Sin City, it's from the pages of that. It's sort of from that world. And it was framed as sort of an answer to only having superhero genre stuff in popular comics.
what we can tell alternate stories that are not just about people in capes type of thing.
On that same shelf after the ones that I listed, I also keep then any kind of documentary that deals with the world of comics in general and in a fairly broad way. So I've got like the Crumb documentary on there, and I've got a Todd McFarlane one on drawing stuff, and so, yeah, it kind of loosey-goosey a little bit.
Let me tell you about how barbed wire is a trigger for me. It's a big trigger. So barbed wire came out in 1996 in theaters. I was not old enough to go see that film. In 1997, it was available on VHS tape. And I was invited to a birthday party for a friend who I thought was a friend, I should say. And in 1997, I was going through a nice awkward phase, lots of sweatpants or gym bottoms, as I prefer to call them. And his parents rented 2 hotel rooms at the Holiday Inn, pool side. Those are the best birthday parties, right? Like, you're next to the pool, you can swim, you know there's going to probably be pizza. And so the idea was, all of us guys were going to be in one hotel room, and then the birthday boy's dad and his much younger brother were going to be in the room next to us, which were conjoining rooms, right? So I was being picked on from the beginning of this thing.
Aww.
And like people I considered to be my friends and classmates, but they needed someone to be the scapegoat, right?
You were the outsider.
So we start watching this movie, and we are in 7th grade at the time, and it is drastically too old for 7th graders, right? Like there's violence, there's some extreme nudity in it, and so we're like, but we keep watching it. His dad walked in at an inopportune moment in the movie, and he goes, "What is this?" And literally the birthday boy goes, "JJ picked it." And so threw me under the bus. So we get in trouble, and he's like, "Well, this is lights out, guys." So he takes the VCR and the tape into his room so that we can't watch it anymore. So we start going to sleep, and they try to pull like some pranks on me. And at one point they doused me with water, and I was like, "That is not cool, guys." So then the dad comes back in here and he goes, "What's going on?" They're like, "JJ's not letting us get to sleep. He's being a real like poopy."
Damn, they really fucking took you out.
So I was already sleeping on the floor, and so I end up having to go into the other bedroom and sharing a bed with the kid's younger brother. And the next morning, I remember going out to the hotel lobby, and I'm in 7th grade, and I was like, "Do you have a courtesy phone?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so I called my parents, and I'm like, "You need to come pick me up right now, or I'm going to just walk home." And they're like, "Well, we can't, we can't right now. We're just getting ready to go out." And I said, "Fine." And so I walked across the street and I played at Pirate's Den at the arcade for 2 hours until my family finally. Now, mind you, I didn't even tell the people, like the birthday party, that I was leaving. I left.
Good for you.
And later on, the dad called my parents and was furious at my actions. Furious. And they explained, "Well, it sounded like you were allowing him to be bullied all night long." And I was not a guy who went, like, I didn't go and tattle about this, but they were like, "Why did you leave a birthday party?" And so I explained exactly what went on. And I said, the thing that frustrated me the most was I wasn't like, they were all ganging up on me. So the court of public opinion had already tried me as an adult, right? And so my dad had some words back. He goes, "Well, I think that actually, you need to teach your son about respect." Now, let's flash forward a few years. I did not I wouldn't call this kid my friend by any means, but we're acquaintances. Like, I would nod to him if I saw him like out and about.
Yep.
he hosted a big party at his lake place and someone shaved off his eyebrow. And I remember hearing about that and being like, oh, that's no good. That's, like that's something that's ultimately cruel.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to toot my own horn here and be like, see, even when someone treated me poorly, I don't want them to be treated poorly I don't want eye for an eye of any kind of thing like that. Mm-hmm. But when you said barbed wire, I instantly was triggered with this.
I'm really sorry to bring you back to that
That's
place.
all right. Because you know what? It made me who I am today.
While listening to your story, I watched the trailer for Barbed Wire. And then I looked up the Wikipedia page just to double check that, yeah, it is. Again, it's a superhero movie. It's from the Dark Horse comics. So just like The Mask, but yeah, I also wonder then, because I think with Barbed Wire, she doesn't have superpowers, right?
She doesn't. She's just really good with a gun.
She's like the Punisher.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like, poor Pamela Anderson. Like, they thought that was going to be a good. And there was a mini series that came out recently about the Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee sex tape. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea how. I had known it was stolen from their house, but I didn't know all of these things that went on to it and how it propelled Tommy Lee's career, but it pulled hers down, and how unfair it was that she was the one who had to take essentially she's the most exposed that she's ever been. And people are like, well, you're pretty much a sex worker anyway. And she goes, no, I'm not. Mm-hmm. And completely out of her control. I felt horrible. And then she was all excited about this, and the studio's excited about this movie, and the studio essentially tanked it because they knew they didn't want to, have anything to do with her anymore because she was sullied. And it makes me feel really bad. I also feel really bad about Britney Spears.
Yeah. So
her book just came out, and I think during the pandemic we all watched the Britney Spears documentary, Free Britney, and we all thought she's being captive by her parents. And then it turns out maybe this was not a conservatorship that was wrong, because she has given some very erratic lifestyle choices now that she's out from underneath the conservatorship. And so maybe there was a place where it was important, but man alive, some of the stuff that she's had to go through, and the general public has to essentially take some responsibility because we were under Britney fever and we wanted everything with her, right? So not only do you want to go to her concerts, but you get a poster of her in your wall, but you wanted to read about her in gossip magazines and see what's going on. There was a piece where she was saying she and Justin Timberlake were dating at the time, and Justin Timberlake was on Total Request Live on a Monday. They're like, hey, you're great. Your career is awesome. This is fantastic. And how's Britney? And he's like, she's great. We're having an awesome time. They're like, no, this is, your number one song with NSYNC. And so then Britney Spears goes on. They're like, are you a virgin? Oh. And why would they ask her that question and not ask Justin Timberlake, right? It's because we ultra sexualized her from a very early on. And she, now she's on Instagram dancing with knives. And people are really worried. And so it's Pandora's box a little bit, right? Like, once you let it out, can you ever get it back in?
Right. What was her movie? Crossroads,
which Zoe Saldana is in it.
But it's not a superhero movie.
Well, I beg to differ, because she uses her voice to help get them from one part of the country to the other. And she misses her mom. She's got a dead mom, which is very superhero-like to have a dead parent, right?
Yeah.
And John Goodman is in it. No, Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd is her dad. John Goodman is the dad in Coyote Ugly, which is probably closer to musical than it is to anything else. I just saw
the musical Coyote Ugly.
Yeah, right? Why actually have they not adapted that into a stage show? Because that would be big money. It's a bar that's run by women. How could they? How can they even make that work? I saw Back to the Future on the big screen last night because it was Back to the Future. Back to the Future Day is October 21st. My mom died on October 20th, and I went to Back to the Future 2 the next day. And people were like, what are you, like, are you crazy? Like, that's not very respectful. And I was like, my mom would tell me to get over it and go see Back to the Future.
Yeah, no, that actually makes perfect sense.
And so yesterday I went to go see Back to the Future, and to go there, my dog was at the emergency vet for a day, like a full 24 hours. And I told my wife, I was like, you can't go to Back to the Future because someone has to pick up the dog. So you go get the dog, and I'm going to go with my friend Sean and watch Back to the Future on the big screen because it doesn't happen every day.
Uh-huh.
And I caught a bunch of stuff I had never noticed before in the movie. And I think you do when you watch it on the big screen.
Was this a celluloid print?
It was not.
Okay.
So it was the digital 4K version of it.
Okay.
So it looked good, except for the screen itself seemed to have like an issue. Like it kept getting like darker and then it would get lighter a little bit and darker. But it seemed to be at like specific cuts in the film.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't remember this. I think it was probably a projector issue
Yeah,
if I had to pick something.
Sounds like it's reacting to luminosity values or something.
Right,
Trying to keep
exactly.
it within a range.
Uh-huh. And like good for you to throw out luminosity values. Look, I'm so impressed at you. But that being said, we're in a real great time right now because they keep re-releasing movies that I've wanted to see on the big screen for a long time. Namely, Scream is on the big screen. When Scream 2 came out, it came out on my birthday. That was when I was in 8th grade. And myself and two friends were getting excused early from school so we could go see the first showing of Scream 2. And my math teacher heard this. And I won't tell you what his last name is, but his first name was Jason. And he coaches, or at least at the time, he coached a sport that involved rackets. And he went and told the principal. And so the principal pulls me in and says, "You are not getting out of school to go see a movie."
What had you told them?
I think my mom just said like, "Hey, I'd like to,
Oh, okay.
and she had gotten the okay from the other parents too, right?
Okay.
It was going to be something special.
Yeah.
We're going to get birthday lunch and go to the first screening.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom ended up getting called into the principal's office, which is ironic because he was still the principal from when she was younger and he remembered her and he was like, "You were no good then, you're no good now." And so after school, we all just pile into my mom's van and we go see the like third screening of it. No big deal, right? But I always remembered that was like, you would never do that today. You would never have, like an educator would never have the gumption to tell someone why they cannot leave school.
Right. Like if the parent has made an excused absence,
Right.
it's up to the parent. It's
Bingo.
not up to the administrator.
How do they know it wasn't part of my religious beliefs?
Yep.
I go to the Church of Nev Campbell. We have a Party of Five celebration every year.
Yeah, you worship at the altar of Nev Campbell for sure.
And we used to worship at Scott Wolf. And then we changed it. But that was something that also just used to drive me nuts. And in all honesty, what did he care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No kidding.
What is one class period? I was a good student. I had straight A's.
Yeah.
So what does it matter if I'm going to get out a little early and enjoy some of the privileges of being an American?
Enjoy being a math teacher, nerd.
Right. I hope that everything's great in your world. But I do. I don't wish him any harm. But that's the type of thing. I remember that. Just like how I had government class in September of 2001. And when 9/11 took place, and I went to government class, which is my third period class, he started off by going, "Now, we all know that something's happening, but we need to, like, buckle down today." We didn't need to buckle down for anything. And it was the only class that day that we did not watch CNN full stop. And I ended up confronting that teacher a long time ago because they came up to me at an event wanting to glad hand and be like, "Oh, and I taught this young man, he knows everything." And I was like, actually, one of the most defining days of my entire generation. And he goes, "Oh, I don't think that that's right." And I'm like, "I can tell you this 100%. The wallet was yellow." That was my Dick Tracy wallet moment. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. I'm also triggered by microfiber, but that's for an entirely different reason.